The station was closed after an employee smelt petrol in the sewerage system. Nearby service stations reported no leaks, but Waterboard investigations are continuing. Companies convicted of pollution offences face fines of up to $1 million. The board says the petrol was contained within the plant and has since been removed and placed in a special pond at the Belmont Wastewater Treatment Works.
The victim's F100 truck was found abandoned on Railway Street near Minmai early this morning. Police believe the vehicle was dumped by the gunman after he hitched a lift with the 35-year-old driver at Hamilton at about 12:30 last night. The victim has told police his passenger produced a gun and ordered him to a secluded section of the Minmai Road where he told him to get out of the car. As he was leaving, the gunman fired 3 shots in his direction, one of which grazed his shoulder. The wounded man was taken by a passing motorist to hospital and treated for minor wounds. Police believe they've located the scene of the shooting in dense scrub on the Minmai Road. It's not known if they found any evidence of the type of weapon used. Scientific police also combed the abandoned truck, removing several items for more detailed analysis. It's believed the truck was dumped on the road shortly after 1 a.m. Local artist Bill Freeman lives in a secluded residence just metres from the scene. He said there was no hint of trouble.
Didn't see anything till I got up this morning.
Police rescue crews joined the investigation this afternoon in a minute examination of surrounding paddocks in the hope that the gunman may have discarded a pistol or shortened rifle. This evening, police inquiries were continuing. The gunman is described as 180 centimetres tall, of medium build with fair or red hair and possibly a moustache. At the time, he was wearing blue trousers, a blue jacket and was carrying a red bag. Information should be forwarded to Wallsend Police Station. Newcastle's police rescue units were working today assisting in an investigation into a shooting near Minmai. It's the kind of work that rescue squad members say can't be done more effectively by any other available group. Mr Pickering has said that the police rescue unit will be phased out over an undisclosed period as other units with the fire brigade and ambulance service complete training programs. The new rescue units will be the fire brigade salvage unit at Cooks Hill and the ambulance unit based at Hamilton. Mr Pickering said it was wasteful to have police involved in rescue when they are in heavy demand for policing work. It's not known what will happen to the equipment and vehicles now used by police rescue. It's thought they may be taken to Sydney to join other rescue units which have at least a short-term future.
It sounds like a utopian dream, but it's one which Lee Harris believes in enough to footslog 20,000 kilometres for. He plans to walk to Cairns, on to Darwin, Alice Springs, Melbourne and finally back to Sydney, towing a 250-kilogram money box.
I hope to raise about $1.5 million to build homes for destitute Australian families. They in turn grow trees and we plant the trees out onto the graded land.
Can you see this happening?
Oh, most definitely. With the response that I've got from new people out there, it's been tremendous, really good.
Lee would like to see Australia 2 million native trees better off by the time he's finished the walk. His wife and 2 young children will accompany him living in a bus. 5 years is a long time to be on the road.
Oh, yes, but look what I'll see in that 5 years. There's a lot of beautiful Australia out there. It's great. Love the place.
It was a close first quarter with Mark Leader hitting a big three-pointer, while Scott Fisher drove in hard for an easy 2 points for the Giants. Michael Johnson had the Falcons in touch with customary coolness. Down by 4 at the first change, Neil Turner worked some magic with Michael. But Leader and Fisher also worked a couple of moves. At half-time, the Giants led by 7, and Scott Fisher slammed one away to extend the lead, and Leader did likewise. But the Falcons wouldn't cave in, still along the baseline for a super basket, and James Carr found the range. Bullock began the final term in fine fashion, hoping to get the Falcons back in the match. But the Giants' big men worked hard inside to re-establish their 10-point lead. From there on, aided by plenty of opportunities from the free throw line and the occasional brilliant basket from the likes of Exum, the North Melbourne Giants were able to close out the match 118-107. For the Falcons, it was their 12th loss in succession, James Bullock showing his displeasure at the result. A full replay on NBN from 11:30 a.m. tomorrow morning.
It was the retailers' one day in the winter sun. The city centre traders came out from behind their shop fronts to ply their wares in the open air, and some aggressive price cutting breathed some life into thousands of bargain hunting shoppers. The annual Crazy Days sale has become something of a carnival for the inner city, and while some see it as a bit of a joke, others are only too keen to sing its praises. It was a chance to paint the town red, and thousands took up the opportunity. Though not without its difficulties, it was undoubtedly a successful day, filled with bargains, balloons and all that jazz. The semi-trailer, laden with tins of brake fluid and radiator solvents, was travelling north when it ran off the highway between Murrurundi and Willow Tree at a notorious spot known as Doughboys Hollow. The heavy unit crashed into an embankment and overturned, trapping the driver by his legs.
We're not sure whether his tyre has gone flat or his load's moved, but he's gone to the left-hand side of the road, gone straight into the wall, and he's been trapped now for approximately 2 hours.
Rescue and ambulance units from Tamworth, Scone and Corindi worked to lift the wreckage off the driver, while fire units took precautions in case of an explosion. During the painstaking operation, the highway was closed for 3 hours, leaving school holiday makers sitting in their vehicles, cooling their heels. Some hours later, a side track was opened through a disused railway access to help alleviate the traffic snarl. The Lifesaver helicopter flew a team of paramedics from Newcastle to assist in the rescue operation. The driver was eventually freed and placed in the chopper for the quick dash to the John Hunter Hospital in Newcastle. His condition tonight is stable. The highway was partially reopened early this afternoon. There could hardly have been a better qualified panel of experts. 4 times world champion Mark Richards, 2 times champ Tommy Carroll and Kelly Slater, just 19 but already one of the highest paid surfers in history. Just about to embark on his professional career, Slater is the person everyone in the Academy's elite surf squad wishes they could be. But Kelly's advice to the aspiring pros: stay in school and bide your time.
I don't think you really peak until you get into your lower 20s, like say 23 or 24, and so there's no point in really jumping into it.
When Slater does eventually join the World Tour later this month, he's destined to have a devastating impact. His moves are hailed as the most futuristic in the surfing world, and the top-line pros are already looking over their shoulders, wondering what they'll have to do to match the quiet kid from Florida.
My goal is to pretty much, I guess, beat everyone I come up against, and just keep my head and stay focused and know what I want out of surfing and not get sidetracked by the partying and that kind of stuff.
And should the pressure of all those expectations ever get too much, Slater has former child prodigy Tom Carroll in his corner and more than willing to give advice.
Be humble, you know, and make sure you remain that way and not believe too much of what's said and basically said about him, and just to keep that head on.
Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
West dominated the first half, opening Souths up on numerous occasions, and it was Peter Jenner who proved a handful out wide. Souths were guilty of allowing the Rosella forwards time to stand and take a look, and Greg Price made them pay. West led 10-0 until Brett Winkler landed a penalty for the Lions, but West turned defence into attack and a Morrison try resulted. There was plenty of feeling in the game, and referee Lovett had his hands full in controlling proceedings. South, stung into action by the 18-2 half-time scoreline, finally crossed. That was to be it for the Lions, as Baker put the issue beyond doubt. Kahaiba's Sam Lagoosa has been in fine form of late with a win on the Central Coast and also helping his club to the state number 1 pennant crown. And the way he started today, it looked as though it was going to be a one-horse race. But someone forgot to tell Russell Hill of the Charlestown club, and he gradually climbed his way back into the match with tremendous draw shots. In the middle stages, Hill really laid down the gauntlet to Lagoosa, and when he got his nose in front, never looked back, continuing on to take the title 31 shots to 23. In the minor singles final played on the same rink, Stockton's Hugh Jorgensen proved too strong for Lucky Sotovia of the Newcastle Jockey Club, the scoreline identical to the major singles final, 31-23. While some enjoyed the warmer winter afternoon, others liked it as cold as possible, as the Newcastle Bars played host to the Northern District's Winter Swimming Championships. These titles aren't for the faint-hearted, with water temperatures set to chill the healthiest of bodies, but the competition of the fiercest variety. Handicap as well as open races were conducted in a jovial atmosphere, with most competitors feeling no pain at all.
The Hunter's coal industry leaders are on their guard now that South Africa is set to become a major player again in international markets.
The lifting of sanctions, then one must assume that the existing coal buyers will look to South Africa as an alternative source of supply.
The Coal Association says more than 70% of the Hunter's coal is exported to Asia, particularly Japan, and Pretoria will be keen to take a slice of those markets. But the association's regional manager, John Hannon, says Hunter coal suppliers should not be overly worried in the short term.
So really at this stage there's been no effect. I think possibly next year we'll start to see an effect when contracts are renegotiated. There'll certainly be pressures on us for price.
Mr Hannon says the Hunter has some advantages over South Africa.
We are politically a more stable country, and I think our track record shows that we've been pretty reliable suppliers both in terms of tonnage and quality. So I think that stands us in good stead as far as our reputation is concerned.
But both the association and industry leaders say the hunter must maintain its competitive edge to retain its export markets.
Well, clearly we must continue to demonstrate to the international markets that we are a reliable supplier. That means continually working on the changed work arrangements we have and continuing to look at control on our costs.
Coal producers say where the hunter could lose out to South Africa is Europe. With Pretoria having a geographical advantage, the hunter's 15% stake in the European markets could be whittled away. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The Black Diamonds won their way through to the New South Wales Country Championship final with a 28 points win over the North Coast and now face the ultimate test against the winners of the Southern Division final, Sydney number 2. Newcastle's task won't be easy as the Sydney Second Division side has the capacity to choose some players from the Premier Division in the state capital. However, the Black Diamonds won't be a pushover either and boast a well-balanced side with one of the trump cards, Kyle Hose from Muswellbrook at centre-half forward. The Diamonds look strong across the centre and Daryl Isaacs will give them plenty of drive in the ruck. BHP Austral will be out to continue their recent run of success when they play Sydney Macedonia at Birmingham Gardens tomorrow afternoon. Austral have won 4 and drawn 2 matches in their past 6 outings and with a 2-goal win would leapfrog Macedonia on the State League Premiership table. Once again, BHP Austral will rely on Bobby Namoff and David Lowe up front along with Nick Meredith, and at the back Darren Stewart, Howard Tredinick and youngster Andy Roberts hold the key to the defence.
More than 300 Royal Newcastle Hospital staff heard the grim news this morning. The region's health services are $500,000 over budget every week, and within a month there must be a severe rationalisation of services. The proposed rationalisation would axe 500 jobs across the board through voluntary redundancy, close the Royal Newcastle or Wallsend and Curry hospitals and reorganise services. The Area Health Board has yet to ratify the proposals, but after today's meeting, many believe change is inevitable.
I think we all know what's going to happen with the remarks, even though they say it's going to be a couple of weeks. It seems that it will be.
How do you feel about the situation?
It's hard to tell. There's been no decisions made yet. So we'll know in a few weeks.
They seem to be pointing the finger at shutting this hospital down.
And how do you feel about that?
Pretty lousy. For the third time in my life I've been made redundant in this town, and it hurts.
According to Health Service Chief Executive Owen James, forced redundancy isn't an option at this stage, but will be if there aren't enough volunteers.
Redundancies will only help. We'll need to save on top of redundancies about another 20 million. Quite clearly we're looking straight down the gun barrel of retrenchments, but that has not been considered and I don't want to even think about it because it's not something we would be in except in an extreme.
Dr James blames the budget crisis on a number of factors, from a costs and staffing blowout at John Hunter Hospital to the recession.
I blame the state of the nation. It so happens that the depression that's hitting Newcastle and the recession that's hitting the rest of Australia has adversely affected the state to the point when it cannot meet what was previously accepted as a funding.
And should those funding losses force the closure of the Royal Newcastle Hospital, the government is likely to face stiff opposition.
If the Royal does close, it's going to change a lot of people's lives, a lot of people that work here, the people of the city, and I think the people of Newcastle and the people that work here should try and do something to stop this government from shutting this hospital or any other hospital under area health service.
The decision made today to close those facilities, in my view, would be a bad one. It would be a short-term economic advantage with long-term detrimental effects.
Inmates at St Heliers build steel farm gates for export. The equipment and material is supplied by MI Steel at Hexham, with other costs being met by the Department of Corrective Services. The project was started as a rehabilitation exercise and is now a successful business venture looking toward expansion. Employer groups in the area claim their costs can't compete with that of the jail labour, which works at about a third the cost of the industry award.
Wages at the place are so low, and the arrangement between the two parties is so vague, or we don't know about it at all. It's such that other employers are concerned, as is the trade union movement, about the future employment within the region.
Local employers are calling for a fair go.
And what the other employers are saying is that it ought to be a level playing field, and they ought to be able to compete equally also.
The issue will be raised with the Metal Trades Union and the State Labour Council. Meanwhile, at Maitland Jail, a prison warder will undergo medical tests to determine whether he has contracted the AIDS virus after being accidentally jabbed with a used hypodermic syringe. The warder was loading a jail supply van when he was pricked with the needle which was inside a canvas bag. The man was examined by medical staff at the prison and offered trauma counselling by the Department of Corrective Services.
It may look like a timid animal, but the fox is a proven killer, and experts say their numbers are on the rise in the hunter.
Actually, the drought and the dry conditions has forced more foxes into the area looking for food at the moment.
Feral Animals Inspector Robert Walker says foxes are stalking suburban areas. Yesterday, Yvonne Cox lost 6 of her pet ducks, the heads ripped off. Mrs Cox feared it was the attack of a deranged person. Robert Walker disagrees.
Yes, that's definitely a fox attack.
Attacks have been registered in Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Cessnock and Maitland, with each time the fox taking only its favoured delicacy, the head. Mrs Faye Scottman from Charlestown lost 12 chickens.
Made me feel sick, I thought, real shaky and that, and frightened. It did frighten me.
Poultry owners are advised to have a 2-metre fence around their birds with a cement floor or wire dug into the ground at least a metre to keep the marauders out. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
In their last 2 outings against Cronulla, the Knights have come up trumps with a 10-8 win at Cowdixfield in 1990 and a 28-8 walloping of the Sharks at the IOC in the first match of this season. That win began an unbroken sequence of 7 weeks without loss, and as history will show, from then on the wheels fell off. But on Friday night, the Knights rallied and go into Sunday's match with plenty of confidence. A couple of changes. Ashley Gordon and Glenn Miller are out through injury, Rodney Shoesmith and Steve Linnane back in the top grade, and there will be some subtle line-up changes.
Possible combinations are Linnane, Hagan, Steve Walters to the centre, or the other possibility, of course, is to play Steve Walters, Steve Linnane, Michael Hagan in the centres. We've looked at both of those during the week. We'll train that way with both those combinations tonight, and we'll make that decision a little bit further down the track.
One young man who gained a recall against the Broncos was Steve Walters, and he has retained his spot, now more eager than ever to do well.
I was pretty happy last week with my performance against the Broncos. One missed tackle, but pretty slippery out there too. So hopefully I can, play well this week and verify David's choice in picking me to play first grade this week.
David Wade and new assistant coach Robbie Chew cast an eagle eye over their troops at training tonight at Stockton. Schuster declared fit and the rest of the Knights ready for a shark attack.